Good afternoon, everybody. I am Councilmember Brooke Pinto, Chairwoman of the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety. I would like to call this meeting of the committee to order. Today is Wednesday, January 17th, 2024, and the time is now 11:12 a.m. We have a quorum consisting of the presence of Ward 6 Councilmember Charles Allen and at-large Councilmember Christina Henderson. We have one item on the agenda today. Excuse me, we also have been joined by our Ward 7 colleague, Councilmember Vincent Gray. We have one item on the agenda today, Bill 25-345, the Secure DC Omnibus Amendment Act of 2024, a comprehensive public safety package of initiatives to address the emergent safety and crime challenges in the district. The district is currently experiencing a crisis of increased crime and particularly violent crime that requires legislative action to ensure that our agencies, government partners, and community organizations have the necessary tools and oversight to better prevent crime and end cycles of violence, to increase accountability when crime is committed, and to enhance government coordination in our entire public safety ecosystem. The steep rise in violent crime in the district contrasts to most other jurisdictions in the United States and highlights the critical need for the legislative solutions in Secure DC to bring safety and security to district residents. While the national homicide rate decreased 12.7% in 2023, and a number of cities that have historically suffered higher than average rates of violent crime saw sizable declines in these numbers in 2023, DC experienced 274 homicides, a 35% increase, up from 203 in 2022, and the most homicides the district has experienced in 25 years. A 39% increase in violent crime, a 24% increase in property crime, and 959 reported carjackings, nearly double the number from 2022 and 6 times the number we saw in 2019. Given these troubling trends, we have heard continuous calls from residents, from policymakers, government partners, and advocates to urgently address this crisis in an urgent, comprehensive, and sustainable manner. Throughout the last year, I have heard from literally thousands of residents and advocates through dozens of public hearings, community meetings and forums, public safety walks in all 8 wards, and meetings with residents and stakeholders about many potential avenues to address this crisis. Many residents and advocates have offered passionate and very well-reasoned arguments in favor of doing more to address root causes of crime. Witnesses also argued persuasively that we need to see better implementation of existing strategies and existing programs that is a needed part of this plan. Specifically, many witnesses expressed frustration with the lack of implementation of the Gun Violence Reduction Strategic Plan recently commissioned by the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. I strongly agree that addressing root causes of crime and improving implementation of evidence-based law enforcement and non-law enforcement strategies are critical to our city's need to reduce violence. Based on consistent critiques the committee has heard in public hearings, conversations with agencies, nonprofit partners, and experts, it is clear that the district needs better implementation of our violence reduction strategies and better coordination of our existing programs and services. It is imperative that the district act just as urgently to address and meet the needs of young people and families before they become justice involved. This is particularly important in the context of housing, human services, and our education agencies, none of which this committee has oversight over, but that we look forward to a continued partnership to address those needs and challenges. We will never truly have a safe city until we adequately address the needs and opportunities for all of our residents. With that said, the robust public engagement process has solidified to me the necessity to move forward a number of legislative initiatives that will support the district's efforts to quell crime right away. A number of these initiatives focus on preventing crime, including by providing grants to non-governmental organizations to provide safety personnel and infrastructure, investing in reentry training for returning citizens. The proposals also focus on ensuring greater enforcement and accountability. It seems clear that a lacking sense of accountability has contributed to the current circumstances in the district. I repeatedly hear complaints about this revolving door in the district's criminal justice system, where certain individuals repeatedly engage in dangerous conduct, but are often not prosecuted or suffer few consequences for their actions, even when they are. The committee engaged in a close study of the gaps in our current system that need to be filled to improve the district's public safety outcomes. Secure DC includes many proposals that specifically aim to close this revolving door. These proposals focus on deterring the small number of individuals who repeatedly engage in violent crime and temporarily securing holding individuals who continue to engage in violent crime. The proposals narrowly target the small population to prevent the most dangerous individuals from causing more harm in our communities. They do not return to systems of mass incarceration and seek to balance the many important needs of all of our residents. I want to note that along with many residents and advocates who engaged with the committee, I remain concerned about the impacts of incarceration on the most affected communities, and I'm concerned that Black and Brown residents are dead in our incarcerated population. I am also concerned about the disproportionate impacts of crime on Black and Brown residents and on our neighborhoods in the district that are low income and underserved. I believe that greater enforcement and accountability, along with greater prevention and coordination efforts, are all necessary to make the district safer and secure for our residents. Furthermore, the committee's recommendations regarding enhanced data sharing and greater government oversight will assist our agencies and our policymakers in evaluating the success and performance of our programs. Collecting and publishing data increases transparency for the public and for researchers to partake in the shared work of making our communities safer. In addition, making this information available to policymakers and agencies will improve performance outcomes by preventing crime through deterrence, diversion, and programming for returning citizens, connecting victims with resources, and measuring performance of our first responders. Collectively, enhanced data publishing and oversight will lead to better government coordination and decreased crime. Supporting accountability and transparency of our government agencies is essential to improving the safety and reliability of the provision of services to the public. And these values are no more important than for our police officers. I believe that accountability of our officers and transparency for the public regarding sustained violations of police misconduct are critical to this effort, while also maintaining employee privacy for records like medical treatment. I also believe that we must support our officers to engage effectively and appropriately when potential harms to the community do occur. Secure DC protects these values and maintains the safety, efficacy, accountability, and transparency of police community engagements. District residents cannot wait any longer to feel safe and secure in our communities. And that's why today I am moving my Secure DC Omnibus that includes over 100 legislative solutions that will address the unacceptable levels of crime and violence that are harming our communities. As I discussed, the major provisions of the Omnibus seek to address public safety with a focus on our three primary goals: prevention, accountability, and government coordination. I also want to sincerely thank my colleagues, especially those on this committee, for their collaboration in this process, participating in hearings, attending public safety walks, and making meaningful suggestions to the legislative language and ideas throughout the entirety of this process. I circulated the draft of the Omnibus much earlier than required by council rules to allow additional time to work with my colleagues and ensure the opportunity for more collaboration and feedback. I know that moving our city forward in a safer direction takes all of us. It takes the council and all of our colleagues, the mayor, the attorney general, the United States attorney, the public defender service, the courts, all of our agencies, residents, faith leaders, school leaders, and really each one of us asking ourselves every day how we can play a role in building a safer community. I am confident in the process that we have undergone to get here today, and that the provisions of the Secure DC Omnibus as necessary steps taken as a whole to effectuate improvements to make DC residents safer and more secure. With that, I now move the print and report of Bill 25-345 with leave for staff to make technical, editorial, and conforming changes. Is there any discussion? Okay. I also want to note we have been joined by our at-large colleague, Councilmember Anita Bonds. First, I will turn to you, Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Chair Pinto, for holding today's markup. There's a lot in this bill, I think 90 plus pages, in fact, and it incorporates provisions from 12 different pieces of legislation that were introduced and that you held hearings on all of last year. It's got to be worth emphasizing the incredibly tragic and painful year the district experienced in 2023. There were 274 reported homicides. We had almost double the number of carjackings, and both violent crime and property crime increased at unacceptable levels. The trauma will take years to overcome, and simply put, the district government and all of the various federal agencies that have control over much of our system must do better to ensure public safety. And while this action is focused under this committee's jurisdiction, DC must expand the definition of what public safety means to us. Expanding food benefits through SNAP is public safety. Opening up our rec centers on weekends and nights for our young people is public safety. Making sure folks have stable housing is public safety. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, though, I want to repeat the framework that I've been using when analyzing the provisions and proposals that have come before the council as it attempts to effectively respond to the district's public safety challenges. I've tried by asking three questions. First, will the proposal in front of us be effective in reducing the crime and trends that we've experienced this last year? Second, does the proposal close gaps in our existing laws? And third, will it be applied in a way that is equitable and fair? And will it mandate a whole of government approach to solving crime that brings desperately needed urgency and coordination? When looking at the bill before us today, on balance, I can say yes, and here's why. First, the bill strengthens and clarifies the district's carjacking laws. Following the Court of Appeals' earlier decision that led to several carjacking prosecutions not being able to move forward, this change was something I wanted to see so that our laws can more clearly match the conduct and prosecution to hold people accountable for that type of violence. Second, the bill makes a requirement that I worked with you on this summer to make government shooting reviews permanent. Specifically, this provision mandates that the DC government conduct shooting reviews of every shooting that happens in our city. This is a proven tool that is being used in other cities where gun violence is actually decreasing, bringing all of government together, including trusted community partners, to focus on the details of every shot fired and then having a coordinated response to follow. It's the type of focused deterrence that's been proven to work, and the district desperately needs it. For example, Denver is setting a new standard for lowering gun crimes by focusing on non-lethal shootings with the same resources as fatal or near fatal ones. Shooting reviews are an important step in that same direction, and it's what many cities that have lowered gun violence have put in place. Third, the bill does include many of the gun and possession penalties that have been included in the revised Criminal Code Act of 2022 that was blocked from becoming law by Congress this last year. And lastly, the bill incorporates provisions from legislation I introduced, the Private Security Camera Incentive Program. The bill expands upon that program, which I had created several years ago to help now include small businesses to help be able to purchase small cameras and include glass break sensors. The program generally has been broadly popular. It's been effective, and the committee report notes that more than 25,000 camera systems as of 2023 have aided MPD in solving a number of crimes in the district. Our small businesses have also been hit with burglaries and thefts, and they could benefit from a program like this. So I want to thank you, Chair Pinto, for including provisions in my bill in that omnibus package, and I want to state that I'm also supportive of your amendments to clarify owners or tenants of residential properties benefiting from SNAP are eligible for camera vouchers and require OVSJG to create and track performance indicators for that program. And lastly, before I conclude, I want to say no one is going to be 100% happy with the provisions in an omnibus package. I have heard some concerns, and as is normal, bills change as we move through the legislative process, even including after today's vote. I'll note specifically, I am concerned about the proposed rollback on some of the transparency and accountability for police misconduct against the public, and I hope that I can continue working with you on those provisions as this moves forward to a full vote of the council. I know that you and your team have put a lot of work into this and are taking a collaborative approach, and I have every expectation that's going to continue. Thank you, Chair Pinto.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Allen. Are there any other comments from members? Councilmember Christina Henderson.
Thank you, Councilmember Pinto. As Councilmember Allen mentioned, I think this bill is about a year in the making, if not more. By my team's counts, there are provisions from 10 different bills included in this omnibus and 115 pages of text reflected in the measures before us. Sorting through and considering the merits of every provision of those bills is no small task, and I want to thank you and your staff for your work. Even when we're doing this today, I know that there are other bills that are currently still pending in this area. Many of the provisions we are voting on, I think, will make some necessary changes to our laws. This includes expanding information sharing requirements to allow law enforcement and prosecutors to better enforce the laws, recognizing the devastating impact of domestic violence by making strangulation a felony, enhancing sentences for repeat offenders of sexual, enhancing sentences for repeat misdemeanor sexual assault, enhancing sentences based on a victim's age, and then also requiring the Office of Unified Communications to publish its performance data. Many of these things the council has already voted on and is already currently being implemented on an emergency and temporary basis. The committee has also collaborated with my team over this past weekend to work on some changes that we've requested for the print that we're going to vote on today, and I just want to mention a couple of them. So first, I requested that the print include a timeline for criminal trial extensions. The language in the Active Amendment Act and the draft print that was circulated last week would have allowed for prosecutors to request any length of time for a continuance. A study of criminal courts in 21 states and 91 jurisdictions showed that in less timely courts, the average extension granted for a criminal trial was 35 days, and that an average of 3 continuances are granted. In the district, our courts are less timely, and some of that can be attributed to the fact that of the Senate's failure to confirm our judges. But now the print limits individual continuances to 45 days, which will give people who are in pretrial detention certainty and give prosecutors ample time to prepare for trial. I also requested that the committee print strike the requirement for the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice to undertake a study that impacts, to study the impacts of the law that decriminalize street vending. I'm glad to see that reflected in the print today. We already know what the impacts are, and I'm committed to working with my colleagues to improve the regulation of licensed vendors and also keep stolen goods off our street. In the meantime, MPD can and should, as the law already states, arrest people who are selling stolen goods. You don't actually need a change in the law to do that. That's already the law. The executive is responsible for enforcing the criminal laws that continue to be on our books, and fencing stolen goods is and always has been illegal. The print incorporates some recommendations from the Health Committee that I chair regarding some of the nutrition standards for the Department of Corrections. I know what people are thinking, why does food matter? But I want folks to understand that when we look at the range of reimbursements that the district provides for food, DOC is our least reimbursement. We only reimburse for $1 per meal, which means that that's how you get to meals where it's a slice of bread and a slice of cheese, and we're calling that dinner. And again, these are for individuals who have not been convicted of anything, and so they should be receiving a full meal. Also, at my request, the OVSJG Victim Services Division report will be submitted annually instead of every 6 months. The council frequently receives reports well after the due date, and ensuring that we get things on time requires us to better balance agency capacity with our need for information. Finally, at my request, the print also requires that the Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services, the Department of Human Services, the Department of Behavioral Health, and the Department of Health be informed before an establishment of a drug-free zone. While I appreciate that this change has been made, I want to continue working with the chair and committee on these provisions. As chair of the Committee on Health, I am concerned how drug-free zones may criminalize individuals who are suffering from substance abuse disorder and would disrupt the efforts of our government on harm reduction grantees who are already on the streets to help us combat the overdose epidemic that's in our city. For example, we have mobile syringe services that could draw people to an area that would put them at risk of this policy or discourage them from using that service among others. And just as a reminder for folks, as of September 30th, 2023, this report came out in December 20th, there were 392 fatal opioid-related overdoses in the district and thousands more FEMS calls for non-fatal opioid-related overdoses. The district remains #1 in the country for overdoses. So let me be clear, yes, we need to disrupt the sale of illegal drugs and shutter open-air drug markets, but we can do that while supporting those who are suffering from addiction and ensuring that they don't end up in jail, which is not going to lead to further treatment. I'm not yet sure that we've struck the balance here, so I want to continue working with you over that. I also want to thank you for including the self-dispense spray sale and transfer clarification amendment act of 2023 in this omnibus. Cognizant of the reality that the best public safety infrastructure cannot prevent every crime, the council recently passed emergency legislation I introduced to ensure that residents can access tools for self-defense. Now local and online retailers will be able to permanently be able to sell certain self-defense sprays like pepper spray to district residents. This common sense legislation will empower district residents to address threats to their personal safety, while all 3 branches of government are still working to do the same. For residents who are watching today, know that a markup is only one part of an ongoing legislative process. And while I will vote in favor of this measure today, I continue to have some reservations about parts of the bill. I also want to say a couple other things. Oh, you didn't put me on a timer, so sorry. So, for instance, I'm still unclear, even after all our hearings, why MPD cannot right now order people committing illegal acts to disperse in the way contemplated by the drug-free zone provision. I still have reservations about the chief of police being a voting member of the sentencing commission. I believe it allows MPD to be both of an enforcer of the law and also the jury. I don't know how limiting public access to information about MPD disciplinary procedures or limiting the Office of Police Complaints access to MPD documentation will address crime trends. And I understand that there's a couple of other things as well. And I understand that the committee will likely introduce an amendment in the nature of a substitute at a future legislative meeting. And so I hope that we can talk about some of those other things. We all know that laws alone don't improve public safety. The impact of this legislation will, in the end, be determined by the executive's implementation of it. Police officers will have to be re-educated. Agencies will have to adjust their data sharing practices. MPD will have to collaborate with USAO and OAG. And for USAO, I want to see the rates of which they are declining to prosecute our cases continue to go down. More success at trials, less plea bargains that result in disproportionate sentencing consequences. I think people have said before, no member of the council has a badge. We don't investigate for the sale of stolen goods. We don't make charging decisions. We don't prosecute cases. We have our role and everyone else has theirs. And in order for us to truly get the criminal trends under control that we have here in the district, everyone needs to perform better than it has in recent memory. And I know the council will continue to do its part and commit to rigorous oversight. And I want to ensure that everyone else is doing the same. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Henderson. Councilmember Anita Bonds.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman, and thank you for this outstanding attempt to put together many of the provisions that we've discussed over the past few months in an effort to get a handle on public safety again in the community. As when we talked a few days ago, I have some questions. I'm not necessarily seeing them or being able to find them in a span of a few hours this morning to see whether or not they are actually changes in this print, but I know we'll have an opportunity as we move forward to look at this. One of the areas that I was very concerned with is the process where it says to amend Title 16 of the DC Official Code to grant the right to jury trial in cases where the alleged victim is a law enforcement officer. And I was hoping that we could add to that when the officer is involved in an offense. So in other words, it's not just when they are the victim, but also when they perhaps have played a part in the case. And so that kind of opens it up to almost every trial that may occur. But I think that that's important, that when an officer is accused of a wrongdoing, that we also make sure that that we have a jury trial. So I wanted to, so we'll have an opportunity, hopefully, to discuss that. Another section is to amend the Omnibus Public Safety Agency Reform Amendment Act of 2004 to repeal the requirement that the police post the name, badge, number of officers before an adverse action. You kind of explained to me how you saw that, and you said it really is a situation that we currently have in existence. And so I wanted to also ask about the requirement that the OPC, that is the Office of Police Complaints, keep records confidential. So I think we need to do a little more work on that. And then I wanted to suggest that we add to this legislation the opportunity for retired DC personnel to return to critical positions without having their pensions attached. So those are the concerns that I mostly have. In looking at the document that I had, which was the original 93 pages, just getting your 115 page today, I'll look at it more thoroughly, but I am prepared to support the document. I think it's just necessary, critical, that we move forward as quickly as possible to get provisions in place. And again, as my colleague, Councilmember Henderson mentioned, it is up to the operating side of our government to implement these measures. And so we still have a road ahead of us in order to begin to address the issues in the community and to address them rightfully so. I'm looking forward to at some very soon later date that we will be able to talk about our juveniles and their importance in the community and their rights in society. So I'm looking forward to that conversation, which I'm sure will be unveiled very, very shortly. So thank you very much this morning.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Bonds. Is there any other discussion? Okay, I also want to take this opportunity before we have a vote to sincerely thank my team who has been working literally around the clock to get this accomplished, not only in the last several weeks, but as stated, this has been an effort all year that we have been undertaking, and want to thank you all for caring so deeply about this important topic, and putting your all into this effort. Evan Maroff, Stephen Palmer, Aloy Rodriguez Labrada, Anaya Mitchell, Sean Jetner, Akima Benjamin, Lynn Groft, Brian Romanowski, Victoria Casarubias, Maddie White, Pablo Velasco Rodriguez, Mason Grow, and Genevieve Hewlick. This has been an effort that we are all involved with, and the huge amount of public engagement that this has elicited, I appreciate so much. All of that feedback from those conversations, those hearings, those walks, those community meetings, every day of the week, every time of night, every time of day, really informed this package and this process in a way that makes me believe in it so deeply. So with that, I now move the print and report of Bill 25-345 with leave for staff to make technical, editorial, and conforming changes. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. With that, the ayes have it with a vote of 5-0. Is there any further business before the committee today? All right, the time is now 11:42 a.m. on Wednesday, January 17th, and we are adjourned.